My name is Amanda. I'm 35, and I never imagined my family would be torn apart by a DNA test. For 11 years, I've built a loving home with my husband Mark and our 3 beautiful children. Our oldest Lily holds a special place in my heart for reasons my mother-in-law could never understand. Last month at Olive Garden, surrounded by breadsticks and family, Patricia slammed down DNA results and called me garbage in front of everyone. She had no idea about the truth she was trampling on, a truth I've protected fiercely for a decade. While I share how my mother-in-law's obsession with bloodlines nearly destroyed our family, let me know where you're watching from and hit subscribe if you've ever had a family member cross boundaries they had no right to cross. Family dinners at our house have always been sacred. Every evening at 6, no matter how chaotic the day, the 5 of us gather around our oak table, share our highs and lows, and reconnect. Mark catches us up on his latest architectural project. I share stories from my kindergarten classroom, and the kids bubble over with school adventures. Even on the hardest days, this ritual anchors us. Our home in the Minneapolis suburbs isn't fancy, but we've made it ours. Photos line the hallway, our wedding day, each child's birth, camping trips, and beach vacations. The living room walls showcase the children's artwork in frames, giving their creations the respect of fine art. Our backyard has the treehouse Mark built when Lily turned 7, now the neighborhood kid headquarters on summer evenings. Lily, our 11-year-old, has my blonde hair and artistic spirit, but with startling blue eyes that stand out in family photos. She's thoughtful and nurturing, always looking after her younger siblings. Connor, our 9-year-old, is Mark's mini-me, with the same dark hair, warm brown eyes, and analytical mind that made Mark such a successful architect. Emma, our spirited 6-year-old, has Mark's coloring, but my outgoing personality, never meeting a stranger she wouldn't immediately befriend. We met in college. I was studying early childhood education, while Mark was in the architecture program. Our paths crossed at a campus coffee shop where I accidentally spilled my latte on his meticulously drawn building plans. Instead of anger, he laughed, saying the coffee stain added organic elements to his too rigid design. We were inseparable from that day forward. Our courtship was a whirlwind of late-night study sessions that turned into deep conversations about our dreams. Mark wanted to design eco-friendly homes that families could actually afford. I was passionate about early childhood education, believing the right start could change a child's entire trajectory. We complemented each other perfectly, his pragmatism balancing my idealism. The proposal came on graduation day. After receiving our diplomas, Mark led me to the campus bell tower, where we'd had our first kiss. He'd arranged for friends to hang hundreds of origami cranes from the ceiling, a symbol of the 1,000 years of happiness he promised to create with me. I said yes before he even finished asking. Our wedding was small but joyful. Mark's parents, Patricia and William, hosted it in their spacious backyard. Patricia was polite but reserved throughout the planning process, often making subtle comments about my humble background compared to their established family name. I brushed it off as pre-wedding stress, believing we'd grow closer over time. What no one at that beautiful garden wedding knew was that I was already 8 weeks pregnant with Lily. We had planned to wait a few years before starting our family, but life had other ideas. The night I told Mark about the pregnancy, he held me close and whispered that our timeline didn't matter. We were ready to be parents whenever our children came to us. The truth about Lily's biological origins is something only Mark and I have ever discussed. It's our private story, one we agreed would stay between us unless Lily herself needed to know someday. Patricia, with her obsession with the Harrison family lineage stretching back to the Mayflower, would never have understood. When Lily was born, Mark was the first to hold her. Tears streamed down his face as he counted her tiny fingers and toes, pronouncing her absolutely perfect. From that first moment, their bond was unbreakable. He was and is her father in every way that matters. Connor arrived 2 years later, and Emma 3 years after him, completing our family of 5. Mark approached each pregnancy birth and sleepless night with equal devotion. Never once did he distinguish between the children or treat Lily differently. In his heart and actions, he has 3 children, period. Patricia's involvement in our family life has always been complicated. She loves the children, but loves them differently. Connor and Emma receive expensive gifts and college fund contributions on their birthdays. Lily gets thoughtful but noticeably less extravagant presents. Mark has confronted his mother about this disparity multiple times, but she always has excuses. She saw something perfect for Connor, or Emma's gift was on sale. These subtle distinctions grew more pronounced as the children got older. Patricia would comment on how Connor had the Harrison nose, or how Emma's musical talent comes from the Harrison side. With Lily, she would simply say, "She looks just like you, Amanda," but never with the same pride in her voice. I noticed the pattern years ago, but chose to compensate quietly rather than create conflict. If Patricia gave Connor a special outing, I'd ensure Lily got one too. If Emma received an heirloom piece of jewelry, I'd find something meaningful for Lily. Mark supported these efforts, but maintained that confronting his mother directly would only make her defensive and potentially worsen the situation. The first major red flag came last Christmas when Patricia gave the children their presents. Connor and Emma both received envelopes with stock certificates starting their financial futures. She explained. Lily received a sweater. The hurt in Lily's eyes was unmistakable, though she thanked her grandmother politely. That night, Mark called his mother and firmly told her that such obvious favoritism wouldn't be tolerated. Patricia claimed she'd ordered Lily's real gift, but it hadn't arrived in time. A week later, a similar envelope came for Lily, but the damage was already done. Little did we know that Patricia's behavior wasn't just ordinary grandmother favoritism. She had begun harboring suspicions that would eventually explode into our peaceful family life. Suspicions that started with a simple family photo and her obsession with hereditary traits. I never imagined that her fixation on family resemblances would lead to secret DNA tests. I never thought she would take it upon herself to investigate something that was never her business to begin with. And I certainly never expected that an ordinary family dinner at Olive Garden would become the setting for her to detonate a bomb that threatened everything we'd built. The whispers started at Lily's 9th birthday party. I overheard Patricia talking to her sister in the kitchen while I was grabbing candles for the cake. "Don't you think it's odd?" Patricia murmured. "The girl doesn't look anything like Mark or anyone in our family. Those eyes aren't from our side or Amanda's." Her sister hushed her. "Genetics are complicated, Patty. My friend's kids look nothing alike, and they're full siblings." "Still," Patricia persisted, "something doesn't add up." I froze, candles in hand, heart pounding. Mark and I had always known this day might come when someone would question Lily's parentage, but we'd hoped it wouldn't be from family. I composed myself and returned to the dining room, placing the candles on Lily's unicorn cake with shaking hands. That night, I told Mark about the conversation. He sighed deeply, running his hands through his hair in frustration. "Mom has always been obsessed with the family bloodline. Remember how she showed us that ridiculous family crest before our wedding? I'll talk to her. Make it clear that these kinds of comments are inappropriate." Mark confronted her the next day. Patricia apologized, claiming she was just making an observation about genetics, not implying anything. But the seed of suspicion had been planted in her mind, and rather than letting it go, she began watching Lily more closely, examining her features in comparison to Connor and Emma. The following months brought subtle changes in Patricia's behavior. She began asking unusual questions during her weekly visits. "Amanda, did anyone in your family have blue eyes like Lily's?" "Mark, don't you think it's interesting how artistic Lily is when everyone in our family is so analytical?" Each question felt like a tiny needle probing for inconsistencies. I found myself tensing whenever she visited, dreading what seemingly innocent observation she might make next. Mark noticed too often steering conversations away from physical traits or cutting visits short when his mother's questions became too pointed. 6 months after the birthday party incident, Patricia showed up unannounced one Saturday morning with a family album I'd never seen before. "I thought the children might enjoy seeing their heritage," she announced, settling onto our couch and beckoning the kids over. The album was filled with Harrison family photos dating back generations. Patricia pointed out features on various ancestors. The shape of Connor's ears matched his great-grandfather's. Emma had the same dimple as her great-aunt. For Lily, she flipped through pages with pursed lips, occasionally saying, I just don't see it." Lily, perceptive as always, grew quiet. Later, she asked me, "Mom, why doesn't Grandma think I look like anyone in the family?" My heart shattered. "Grandma just doesn't know how to see properly," I told her, pulling her close. "You have your daddy's kind heart and brave spirit, and that's more important than looking like someone in an old photo." That evening, Mark called his mother and told her the family album visits needed to stop. Their conversation escalated into their first major argument in years, ending with Patricia tearfully claiming Mark was keeping her from her grandchildren, and Mark responding that her behavior was hurting Lily. The tension simmered for weeks. Patricia's visits became less frequent, and when she did come, the atmosphere was strained. William, Mark's father, tried to smooth things over, often bringing peace offerings of homemade cookies or small gifts for the children. Unlike his wife, William had never seemed concerned about who looked like whom. He simply enjoyed being a grandfather. Then came the science fair incident. Lily's 4th grade class did projects on heredity, and she chose to trace eye colors through her family tree. She proudly displayed photos of everyone's eyes with notes about dominant and recessive genes. It was an impressive project that won her 2nd place. When Patricia saw the display at the school open house, she stared at it for a long time, particularly at the section where Lily had written, "Blue eyes are recessive genes. Both my parents have brown eyes, but I got blue eyes. Teacher says this is rare but possible if both parents carry the recessive gene." After the open house, Patricia cornered Mark near the water fountain. I couldn't hear their conversation, but Mark's body language, rigid shoulders, clenched jaw, told me everything I needed to know. Later, he revealed that his mother had questioned the scientific accuracy of Lily's project, implying that 2 brown-eyed parents having a blue-eyed child was more than just rare. The following week, Patricia called and invited us all to Sunday dinner at her house, something that hadn't happened since the family album incident. Mark was hesitant, but I encouraged accepting the invitation as a step toward healing the rift. The dinner was surprisingly pleasant, with Patricia on her best behavior, showing equal attention to all 3 children. As we were leaving, she hugged each child goodbye, lingering a moment longer with Lily. "Would you like to come for a special Grandmother Day next Saturday?" she asked. "Just you and me." Lily, delighted by the attention, eagerly accepted. Despite my misgivings, I couldn't bring myself to deny her this potential bonding opportunity with her grandmother. Mark shared my concerns but agreed that Patricia seemed to be making a genuine effort to connect with Lily. We later discovered what that Grandmother Day really entailed. Patricia took Lily out for ice cream, to a movie, and then to a special doctor appointment she had supposedly scheduled for herself. She asked Lily to wait in the lobby for just a minute while she went in for her quick checkup. During that time, Patricia convinced a nurse to swab the inside of Lily's cheek, claiming it was for a school science project. We didn't learn about this deception until much later. At the time, Lily came home happy from her day out, telling us Grandma had been super nice and had even let her pick out a new book at the bookstore. We were cautiously optimistic that Patricia was finally accepting Lily as an equal grandchild. What we didn't know then was that Patricia had already collected DNA samples from Connor and Emma during their bath time at her house weeks earlier. She had also managed to obtain one of Mark's hairs from a family dinner, carefully plucking it from his sweater when he wasn't looking. Patricia's secret investigation was underway, and we were completely unaware of the storm gathering on our horizon. She had contracted with a private DNA testing company, paying extra for expedited results, determined to confirm her suspicions about my firstborn daughter. The results would arrive 3 weeks later, setting into motion a confrontation that would expose secrets, reveal truths, and force our family to define what truly makes someone a parent. The invitation to dinner at Olive Garden should have been my first clue that something was off. Patricia had always considered chain restaurants beneath the Harrison family standard, preferring local bistros where the staff knew her by name. But she insisted we meet there, claiming the children had been asking for endless breadsticks. That Friday evening, our family of 5 arrived to find Patricia and William already seated at a large corner table. Patricia was unusually fidgety, her normally perfect manicure tapping against her water glass. William seemed uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact with Mark and me. "So lovely to have everyone together," Patricia said with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. She'd ordered appetizers for the table, mozzarella sticks and calamari, another departure from her usual concern about filling up on starters. The children, oblivious to the tension, happily munched breadsticks and colored their kids' menus. Mark attempted normal conversation about work, the upcoming school year, and the family vacation we were planning to the Grand Canyon. Throughout the appetizer course and into the main meals, Patricia remained oddly quiet, responding to direct questions but offering little else. Several times, I caught her staring intently at Lily, who was helping Emma cut her chicken parmesan into manageable bites. "Lily is such a good big sister," I commented, trying to draw Patricia into positive conversation about her eldest grandchild. Patricia's response was cold. "Yes, she certainly seems to care about her siblings." The emphasis on seems and siblings sent a chill down my spine. Mark caught it too, giving me a concerned glance across the table. As the dinner plates were being cleared and the children debated which desserts to order, Patricia reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a manila envelope. She placed it on the table, her hand resting possessively on top. "William and I have been doing some family research lately," she began, her voice steady but with an underlying edge. "The Harrison family history is important, you know. Bloodlines matter." Mark set down his water glass. "Mom, is this another genealogy discussion because we've talked about—" "This isn't about genealogy, Mark. This is about honesty and integrity." Her fingers tapped the envelope. "This is about the truth." By now, the children had stopped their dessert debate, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. Lily, always attuned to emotional undercurrents, straightened in her seat, her blue eyes darting between her grandmother and her parents. "Whatever this is," Mark said firmly, "it can wait for another time, not in front of the children." Patricia's face hardened. "I think it's waited long enough." She slid the envelope toward Mark. "Open it." William placed his hand on his wife's arm. "Patty, please. Not here, not now." She shook him off. "They need to know. He needs to know." Mark didn't touch the envelope. "Mom, we're going to pay the bill and leave. Whatever this is, we can discuss it privately another time." "Fine," Patricia snapped, flipping open the envelope herself and pulling out several papers with official-looking letterheads. "I'll tell you myself. I had the children tested. DNA tested." The restaurant noise seemed to fade away, leaving only Patricia's voice echoing in my ears. "Connor and Emma are yours, Mark. 100%. But Lily—" She thrust a paper toward him, finger jabbing at a highlighted section. "Lily is not your biological daughter. 0% DNA match. Your wife has been lying to you for 11 years. The world stopped. I couldn't breathe. Beside me, Lily's crayon clattered to the table. "What's DNA?" Emma asked loudly. Connor, more aware at 9, looked confused but concerned. "Why did Grandma test us?" Mark's face had drained of color, but his response was immediate and firm. Kids, please go with Grandpa William to the arcade section for a few minutes. Take your dessert money. He handed Connor a $20 bill. Mom, Amanda, and I need to talk privately. William, looking relieved to escape, quickly ushered the children away from the table. As soon as they were out of earshot, Mark turned to his mother, his voice low and dangerous. How dare you? How dare you take my children's DNA without our permission? How dare you bring this up in public in front of them? Patricia seemed taken aback by his anger, clearly having expected a different reaction. You should be thanking me. I've uncovered the truth your wife has hidden from you. She's made a fool of you, passing off another man's child as yours. I found my voice at last, though it trembled. You had no right to test our children, no right to ambush us like this. I had every right. Patricia's voice rose, drawing glances from nearby tables. The Harrison family name our legacy. Stop! Mark's command cut through her tirade. You don't know what you're talking about, and you've just traumatized 3 innocent children with your obsession with bloodlines. Patricia's eyes narrowed as she looked between us. You knew, she whispered, realization dawning. You already knew she wasn't yours. She is mine, Mark stated firmly. Lily is my daughter in every way that matters. Patricia turned her glare to me. You trapped him. You came into this marriage with another man's child, and that's enough. Mark's palms slammed onto the table, rattling the glasses. You don't know anything about our lives or our decisions. But Patricia wasn't finished. She leaned across the table toward me, her voice venomous. You're garbage. Absolute garbage. Passing off your indiscretion as a Harrison. Diluting our family line with your, say one more word about my wife or my daughter, and you will never see any of your grandchildren again. Mark's threat was delivered with such quiet intensity that Patricia physically recoiled. I sat, frozen tears streaming down my face, aware of curious onlookers at nearby tables. Through the blur, I could see Lily watching us from the arcade entrance, her young face etched with confusion and hurt. We're leaving, Mark announced, standing and throwing cash on the table for our meal. And don't follow us home. Don't call. Don't reach out until you're ready to apologize, not just to us, but to Lily as well. As we gathered our belongings, Patricia made one last desperate attempt. The family has a right to know the truth about her. Mark turned back, his expression so cold it was unrecognizable. The truth. You want the truth, Mom? The truth is that biology doesn't make a parent. Love does. Lily is my daughter. End of discussion. He took my hand, called for the children, and led our shell-shocked family toward the exit. As we passed Patricia's chair, I heard her mutter, "Garbage!" one last time under her breath. Outside in the parking lot, Lily tugged at Mark's sleeve, her voice small and frightened. Daddy, what did Grandma mean about DNA? Am I not yours? And there it was, the moment we had hoped would never come, or at least not like this. Not in an Olive Garden parking lot after a public ambush. Not before we could prepare, before Lily was old enough to truly understand. Mark knelt down to Lily's level, his hands gentle on her shoulders. Let's go home, he said softly. Mom and I need to tell you a story. A true story about how you became our daughter and how much we've always loved you. As we drove home in silence, I knew our family would never be the same. Patricia's bomb had detonated, but she had no idea about the truth. She had trampled on a truth far more complex and beautiful than her narrow understanding of family could comprehend. The drive home from Olive Garden was the longest 20 minutes of my life. In the rearview mirror, I could see Lily's face, pale and confused. Connor and Emma sensed the tension, but didn't understand its source, asking questions that we deflected with promises to explain later. Our house, usually a warm haven, felt cold and foreign as we walked through the door. Mark suggested Connor and Emma watch a movie in the basement rec room while we talked with Lily upstairs. I prepared hot chocolate, our family's comfort drink for difficult conversations, while Mark sat with Lily on the couch, his arm around her shoulders. When I joined them, Lily looked up with eyes too wise for her 11 years. "Am I adopted?" she asked directly. Mark and I exchanged glances. We had discussed this possibility many times over the years, planning what we would say if questions arose. But Patricia's ambush had forced our timeline. "Not exactly," I began, gently setting the mugs down on the coffee table. "But there is something important we need to tell you about how you came into our family." I took a deep breath and started the story we had protected for so long. "Before I met your dad, I was engaged to another man named David. We had been together since high school, and everyone expected us to get married. 2 months before our wedding, I discovered I was pregnant with you." Lily's eyes widened, but she remained silent, listening intently. "I was so happy about the baby about you, but when I told David, My voice faltered. Mark squeezed my hand silently, encouraging me to continue. "He said he wasn't ready to be a father. He said I needed to make a choice, him or the baby. He wanted me to not have you. He wanted you to get rid of me." Lily's voice was small but clear. "He wanted me to have an abortion, yes." I confirmed, deciding that honesty within age-appropriate boundaries was essential. "But I already loved you, even though you were just beginning to grow inside me. I couldn't do that, so I ended our engagement." "What did your parents say?" Lily asked, already understanding the social implications even at her age. This was the hardest part. "My parents were very religious and conservative. They were embarrassed that I was pregnant without being married. They told me I either needed to find David and convince him to marry me, or I would no longer be welcome in their home." "They kicked you out because of me." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Because of their own narrow view of family," Mark interjected firmly. "Never because of you." I nodded gratefully at him before continuing. "I moved into a tiny apartment and took extra shifts at the hospital where I worked as a nursing assistant. I was determined to make a good life for us, just you and me." "Then how did Dad come into the picture?" Lily asked, looking at Mark. Mark smiled, taking over the story. "I met your mom at a birthing class. I was there with my sister, who was also pregnant and whose husband was deployed overseas. Your mom and I started talking while waiting for the class to begin, and I was immediately drawn to her strength and her love for the baby she was carrying." "You weren't grossed out that she was pregnant with someone else's baby?" Lily asked, with the bluntness of childhood. Mark laughed softly. "Not at all. I thought she was incredible, working full-time, preparing for a baby all on her own, never complaining. We became friends first. I would help her carry groceries up to her apartment, and she would thank me with homemade cookies. The worst cookies ever," I added, lightening the moment. "I was a terrible baker back then." "Terrible," Mark agreed with a wink. "But I ate every one." "So when did you fall in love?" Lily pressed, clearly trying to fit this new narrative into her understanding of our family story. "We fell in love gradually," Mark explained. "By the time your mom was 8 months pregnant, I knew I wanted to be with her and with you forever. When you were born, I was in the waiting room. The nurse thought I was your biological father and called me in right away. The first time I held you," Mark continued, his voice thick with emotion, "you wrapped your tiny hand around my finger and looked up at me with those big blue eyes. In that moment, you became my daughter in my heart. Biology didn't matter." "We married when you were 6 months old," I added. "Dad adopted you legally when you were 2, which means in every way that counts legally, emotionally, practically, he is your father." Lily was quiet for a long moment, processing. Does Connor know? Does Emma? No, I said. We always planned to tell you when you were old enough to understand, but we wanted it to be your story to share with your siblings when and if you ever wanted to. What happened to my biological father, to David? Lily asked, using the term we had just introduced. Mark and I had prepared for this question too. He signed away his parental rights when you were born, I explained. He's never been part of your life and has never asked to be. Does he know what I look like? That I exist? He knows you were born, I said carefully. But he chose not to be involved. Sometimes people aren't ready to be parents, and that's about their limitations, not about the child. So Grandma Patricia is right, Lily said, her voice wobbling. I'm not really a Harrison. No, Mark said firmly. Grandma Patricia is absolutely wrong. You are a Harrison because I am a Harrison and I am your dad. Family isn't made by blood alone, Lily. It's made by love, by choice, by showing up every day for each other. But my DNA is just a blueprint, I interjected. It doesn't determine who loves you, who raises you, who teaches you to ride a bike, or helps with your homework. Your dad has been there for every moment of your life. He is your father in all the ways that truly matter. Lily looked thoughtful. So, when Grandma called you garbage at the restaurant, she was wrong, Mark stated flatly. What Grandma did was inexcusable. Testing you children without permission, ambushing us in public using those hurtful words, none of that was okay. Will I still see Grandma and Grandpa? Despite everything, Lily's concern for maintaining family connections touched my heart. We need some time, Mark said honestly. Grandma needs to understand that what she did was wrong and hurtful. But Grandpa William called while we were driving home and apologized. He didn't know what Grandma was planning. As our conversation continued, Lily asked dozens more questions, some we were prepared for, others that caught us off guard with their insight. We answered each one as honestly as age-appropriate boundaries allowed, emphasizing throughout that she was loved, wanted, and an essential part of our family. Finally, Lily asked the question that revealed her deepest fear. Do Connor and Emma count more because they're biological? Absolutely not. Mark and I responded in unison. We love all three of you equally and completely, I assured her. Having a biological connection to Connor and Emma doesn't make our love for them any stronger or different than our love for you. Mark nodded in agreement. The day I held you for the first time, I became a father. Connor and Emma just made me a father again and again. You were my first child, Lily, and you opened my heart to being a dad. Nothing will ever change that. As the conversation wound down, emotional exhaustion evident on all our faces, Lily asked if she could watch the movie with her siblings. Before heading downstairs, she hugged us both tightly. I think I need time to think about everything, she said, with a maturity that made my chest ache. But I'm glad you told me the truth. After she left, Mark and I collapsed against each other on the couch, emotionally drained. That went as well as it could have considering the circumstances, Mark murmured into my hair. Patricia had no right, I whispered, anger rekindling. No right to test the children, no right to ambush us, no right to call me garbage. Mark finished, his jaw tightening. No, she didn't, and there will be consequences for that. We sat in silence for several minutes, processing the evening's events and the seismic shift in our family narrative. What do we tell Connor and Emma? I finally asked. I think we follow Lily's lead, Mark suggested. It's her story to share. We'll answer any questions they have, but we should let Lily decide when and how much she wants them to know. As we sat together in our quiet living room, the children's laughter occasionally drifting up from the basement, I realized that the secret I had carried for 11 years, the fear of this moment, had been released. Despite Patricia's cruel intentions, there was a strange relief in having the truth in the open, in no longer needing to guard against slips or questions. What Patricia couldn't understand, with her obsession with bloodlines and heredity, was that she had not exposed a shameful secret. Instead, she had inadvertently revealed the beautiful truth at the core of our family, that love and choice are stronger bonds than biology could ever be. The coming days and weeks would bring more conversations, more processing, more decisions about Patricia's place in our lives going forward. But in that moment, with Mark's steady heartbeat against my ear, I knew our family would weather this storm, not because of shared DNA, but because of shared love. The days following Patricia's Olive Garden ambush were a delicate dance of supporting Lily while managing Connor and Emma's confusion about the sudden family tension. We decided to tell them a simplified version of events. Grandma Patricia had done something that hurt Lily's feelings very badly, so we were taking a break from seeing her until she could apologize properly. Connor, analytical even at 9, asked probing questions. But what exactly did she do? Why at a restaurant? Why is Lily so sad? Emma at 6 was more concerned with immediate emotions. Is Lily going to be okay? Can I draw her a picture to make her feel better? We navigated these questions carefully, always circling back to the core message: our family was strong. Everyone was loved, and sometimes adults make mistakes that need to be resolved. Lily moved through her own process with remarkable resilience. The morning after our conversation, she appeared at breakfast with a list of questions she'd thought of overnight. Some were practical. Do I have any medical history I should know about from my biological father? Others were emotional. Did you ever think about telling me before now? Mark and I answered each question honestly, consulting with each other when necessary to ensure our responses were consistent and age-appropriate. We emphasized repeatedly that our timeline for telling her had always been based on her readiness, not on shame or secrecy. 3 days after the restaurant incident, Patricia began her campaign to regain access to the family. It started with elaborate flower arrangements delivered to our door: roses for me, lilies for Lily, and custom bouquets for the younger children. The cards offered no apology, only invitations to talk things through, and references to family loyalty. Mark returned each delivery to the florist with a note explaining that flowers were not a substitute for a genuine apology and recognition of boundaries crossed. Next came the gifts: a designer dress for Lily in her favorite color, an expensive gaming system for Connor, and a collector's doll for Emma. These we donated to a local children's charity again, explaining to Patricia that material items couldn't repair the damage she had caused. William called several times, his voice strained as he tried to mediate. "Patty knows she handled it badly," he said during one call. "She just wants to make things right." "Does she understand what right looks like?" Mark challenged his father. "Has she acknowledged how wrong it was to test the children without permission, to ambush us in public, to use that language in front of our daughter?" William's hesitation was answer enough. Patricia's next tactic was to enlist family allies. Mark's sister, Catherine, called clearly uncomfortable with her assigned role as peacemaker. "Mom's a wreck," she reported. "She's not sleeping, barely eating. I know she was completely out of line, but maybe if you just talk to her." "Has she expressed any real remorse?" I asked. "Not for the consequences to her, but for the harm she caused Lily." Catherine sighed. "She keeps saying she was just trying to protect the family and had a right to know." "I've tried explaining why that's problematic, but you know Mom when she gets fixated on something." We held firm. No contact until Patricia demonstrated genuine understanding of the boundaries she had violated and the harm she had caused, particularly to Lily. A week after the incident, I received a call from an unexpected source, my own mother, with whom I had maintained only minimal contact since she had turned her back on me during my pregnancy with Lily. "I heard about what happened," she said without preamble. "Your mother-in-law called me." My blood ran cold. "She what?" "She found my number somehow. Said she thought I'd want to know the truth about my granddaughter." My mother's voice was uncharacteristically gentle. "I told her I've known the truth for 11 years. That my granddaughter has a father who chose her, which is far more valuable than one who walked away." Tears sprang to my eyes at this unexpected defense from the woman who had once told me I was no longer welcome in her home. "I know we've had our differences," my mother continued, "and I've made terrible mistakes in how I handled your pregnancy. But what that woman did was inexcusable. I told her so." It was the closest thing to an apology I had ever received from my mother, and it came at the moment I least expected it. We spoke for nearly an hour, our longest conversation in years. And while it didn't erase the past, it opened a door I had thought permanently closed. Meanwhile, Lily was processing her new understanding of her place in our family. One evening, I found her sorting through her baby album, studying photos of Mark holding her as an infant, teaching her to walk, reading her bedtime stories. "He really loved me from the very beginning, didn't he?" she asked, running her finger over a picture of Mark asleep on the couch with infant Lily nestled on his chest. "From the very first moment," I confirmed. "I've never seen anyone fall in love faster than your dad fell in love with you." 2 weeks after the Olive Garden incident, Lily announced at dinner that she had made a decision she wanted to talk to Patricia. "By yourself?" Mark asked, concern evident in his voice. Lily shook her head. "No, with both of you, but I need to tell her how I feel." I wrote it all down. She showed us the letter she had composed, 3 handwritten pages expressing her hurt at being tested without permission, her sadness at being called not a real Harrison, and her anger at seeing her mother called garbage. The letter was articulate, heartfelt, and showed a maturity beyond her years. "Are you sure about this?" I asked, my protective instincts on high alert. Lily nodded firmly. "Grandma needs to know that what she did wasn't just about DNA. It was about trust and respect. And if she wants to be in my life, she needs to understand that Dad is my real dad, no matter what some test says." Mark made the arrangements. Patricia would come to our house, not the other way around, and the meeting would be on our terms. William would not attend. This needed to be a direct conversation without his mediating influence. The day of the meeting, Patricia arrived precisely on time, dressed as if for church, in a conservative dress and pearls. Her face showed the strain of the past weeks, new lines around her mouth, dark circles under her eyes, poorly concealed by makeup. We sat in the living room, Lily between Mark and me on the couch. Patricia perched stiffly in an armchair across from us. "Thank you for agreeing to see me." Patricia began, her practiced social smile firmly in place. "I've been so worried about all of you." "Before we go any further," Mark interrupted, "I want to be clear about why we're having this conversation. Lily has something she wants to say to you, and we expect you to listen without interrupting. This is not about your feelings or explanations. This is about you hearing directly from your granddaughter about the impact of your actions." Patricia's smile faltered, but she nodded. Lily's hands, trembling slightly, unfolded her letter and began to read. Her voice started quiet, but grew stronger with each paragraph. She described her confusion at the restaurant, the hurt of hearing herself described as not a real Harrison, the shock of learning about her biological origins in such a public and painful way. She explained that while she was still processing her feelings about her birth story, she was certain of one thing: Mark was her father in every way that mattered. "When you called my mom garbage, you weren't just hurting her, you were hurting me. Lily read, her voice unwavering. Because I'm part of her. And when you said I wasn't really part of the family because of DNA, you were saying that love doesn't matter as much as blood. But in our house, love is what makes a family, not DNA tests. Patricia sat motionless, her face cycling through emotions, defensiveness, surprise, and finally, as Lily continued what appeared to be genuine realization. If you want to be my grandma, Lily concluded, you need to understand that my dad is my real dad. DNA doesn't change that, and you need to respect my mom and never call her names again, because we're a family, all 5 of us, and we stick together. When Lily finished reading, the room fell silent. Patricia opened her mouth, closed it again, then reached for the tissue box on the side table. I don't know what to say. She finally managed, her voice uncharacteristically small. You don't need to say anything right now, Mark said. We want you to really think about what Lily has shared. If you're ready to acknowledge the harm you've caused and make genuine amends, we can talk about rebuilding trust. If not, then we'll need to continue our distance. Patricia looked at Lily, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time without the filter of bloodlines and family legacy. I never meant to hurt you, she said softly. I was so focused on other things that I didn't consider how my actions would affect you. I'm sorry, Lily. Truly sorry. It wasn't a complete acknowledgement, but it was a start. Lily nodded, accepting the apology without fully embracing it. And Amanda? Patricia continued, turning to me with visible effort. What I said at the restaurant was unforgivable. I was shocked and angry, but that's no excuse. You've been a wonderful mother to all 3 children and a good wife to my son. I was wrong to speak to you that way. The apology felt rehearsed, but not insincere. I nodded, acknowledging her words without offering immediate absolution. Trust, once broken so thoroughly, would take time and consistent effort to rebuild. As Patricia left our house that day, the path forward remained uncertain. We had opened the door a crack, but full reconciliation would depend on Patricia's willingness to truly examine her values and behavior. What was certain, however, was the strength of our immediate family. The secret that had hovered in the background of our lives for 11 years was now in the open, and Lily was beginning to integrate this new understanding into her identity with remarkable grace. That night, as I tucked her into bed, she asked a question that revealed the depth of her processing. Mom, do you ever wish that my biological father had wanted to be my dad? I considered the question carefully before answering. I wish he had been a better person who made different choices. But no, I don't wish he had been your dad. Because then Dad wouldn't be your dad, and you two have a bond that's irreplaceable. Lily smiled, satisfied with the answer. I think everything worked out exactly right then. As I closed her bedroom door, I marveled at her wisdom and resilience. Patricia's DNA test had been wielded as a weapon meant to divide our family. Instead, it had revealed the unbreakable bonds that truly defined us. Bonds formed not by genetics, but by love choice and the daily decision to show up for each other, no matter what. 3 months after Patricia's Olive Garden ambush, our family gathered around the kitchen island, on a Sunday morning, pancake batter splattering as Connor attempted increasingly elaborate flips. Emma syrup already somehow in her hair, despite not having eaten yet carefully arranged blueberries into smiley faces on each plate. Lily, now our official family photographer, documented the chaotic breakfast preparations for her growing digital album titled The Real Harrisons. Dad, you're burning the edges again, she called out, zooming in on Mark's slightly charred pancake stack. That's not burning, that's caramelization, Mark protested with a wink. A sophisticated culinary technique. Sure it is, I laughed, sliding the butter dish his way. That's why the smoke detector always goes off when you cook. These ordinary moments had taken on new significance in recent months. The DNA revelation that Patricia had intended as a bombshell had instead triggered a family renaissance. With secrets exposed and truths acknowledged, we had found a deeper authenticity in our relationships with each other. Lily had embraced her origin story with a maturity that continually amazed us. After processing her initial shock and confusion, she had grown increasingly confident in her identity as Mark's daughter, in all the ways that matter, as she often put it. When a classmate innocently asked about inherited traits during a science unit, Lily had responded matter-of-factly, "My dad adopted me when I was a baby, so we don't share DNA, but we do share just about everything else." Connor and Emma had adjusted to the new family narrative with the resilience of childhood. After Lily decided to share her story with them with our support, they had responded with simple acceptance. Connor had questions about the legal process of adoption, while Emma wanted reassurance that they weren't adopted too. Once those concerns were addressed, they returned to their usual sibling dynamic, alternating between fierce loyalty and squabbling over the last cookie. Our relationship with Patricia and William remained a work in progress. The initial confrontation had given way to cautious, structured interactions. Sunday dinners at their house had been replaced by monthly lunch outings at neutral restaurants with clear boundaries established beforehand. Patricia, to her credit, was making visible efforts to change. The woman who had once been obsessed with bloodlines and family legacy now carefully avoided any mention of genetic inheritance or family resemblances. Her previous pattern of favoring Connor and Emma had been replaced by a deliberate equality in her attention and gifts. She had even begun attending therapy, according to William, though she presented it as life coaching to save face. "Do you think Grandma will ever really understand?" Lily had asked me recently after a particularly stiff lunch where Patricia had overcompensated by excessively praising everything Lily did or said. "I think she's trying," I had answered honestly. "Some people take longer to unlearn lifelong beliefs. The important thing is that she's making the effort." William had adapted more readily his natural affection for Lily unaffected by the DNA revelation. He had taken her fishing at the lake house the previous weekend, just the two of them, continuing their special grandfather-granddaughter tradition without missing a beat. The most unexpected development had been the tentative reconnection with my own parents. After my mother's supportive phone call following Patricia's ambush, we had begun a careful reconciliation process. My father, following my mother's lead, had reached out with a handwritten letter acknowledging the pain caused by their rejection during my pregnancy with Lily. Last month, they had visited for the first time in nearly a decade, meeting Connor and Emma for the first time, and reestablishing their relationship with Lily. The reunion was awkward, but healing, with my father tearfully asking Lily's forgiveness for missing so many years of her life. "I made the worst mistake a grandfather could make," he had told her, his voice breaking. "I let pride and outdated beliefs keep me from knowing you." Lily, with her seemingly boundless capacity for grace, had hugged him and said simply, "Well, you're here now. That's what matters." As we finished our Sunday pancakes sticky with syrup and contentment, Mark proposed an outing to the nearby state park. Within minutes, the kids were scrambling to find hiking shoes and water bottles, their excited chatter filling the house with noise and life. In the momentary quiet of the kitchen, Mark pulled me close. "Have I told you lately that you're the best thing that ever happened to me?" I leaned into his embrace. "Even with all the drama I brought into your life." "Especially with all the drama," he laughed. "Without it, we wouldn't have Lily. And without Lily, I wouldn't have become a father, which is the best part of who I am." This was the truth Patricia had never understood, that parenthood is defined by love and choice, not by genetic coincidence. Mark had chosen to be Lily's father from the moment he held her, long before Connor and Emma were even conceived. His love for her had never been contingent on shared DNA or physical resemblance, but on the daily decision to be her dad in every way that mattered. As we loaded the minivan for our hiking adventure, I watched Mark help Lily adjust her backpack, their identical expressions of concentration, a similarity born of years of togetherness, not genetic inheritance. Connor was already reciting facts about the wildlife we might encounter, while Emma danced impatiently by the car door, eager to start exploring. This was our family, perfectly imperfect, bound by choice and commitment rather than merely by blood. Patricia's DNA test intended to divide us had instead revealed the unbreakable strength of these chosen bonds. Later that evening, after hiking trails and picnic lunches, after baths and bedtime stories, I found Lily sitting on her bedroom floor, surrounded by photos. She was creating a special album, carefully selecting images from throughout her life. "What's this project?" I asked, sitting beside her on the carpet. "It's called What Makes a Dad," she explained, showing me a picture of Mark teaching her to ride a bike, another of him bandaging her knee after a fall, a third of him cheering wildly at her science fair. "I'm going to give it to Dad for Father's Day." My heart swelled as I flipped through the pages she had already completed, each photo capturing a moment of true fatherhood, moments of teaching, protecting, celebrating, and loving. "I think it's perfect," I told her, blinking back tears. Lily nodded, satisfied. "Grandma Patricia needed a DNA test to figure out what family means, but I already know. Family is about who loves you, not whose DNA you share." As I kissed her goodnight and turned out her light, I marveled at the wisdom that had emerged from what could have been a family-destroying crisis. Patricia's test had revealed a truth, but not the one she had intended. It had shown us all that the strongest family bonds are those we choose to forge and maintain every day, regardless of biology or bloodlines. In the quiet of Lily's room, watching her peaceful sleeping face in the glow of her nightlight, I felt profound gratitude for our perfectly imperfect family story. A story of choices made from love, of bonds stronger than DNA, and of a truth more beautiful than Patricia could ever have imagined when she set out to expose what she thought was our family's greatest secret. Have you ever discovered that family is about much more than shared DNA? I'd love to hear your stories of chosen families, adoption, blended families, or any situation where love created bonds stronger than biology. Share your experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. For those dealing with family members who struggle to see beyond bloodlines, know that you're not alone. Your family is valid, your bonds are real, and sometimes the families we create by choice are the strongest of all. Thank you for joining me for this deeply personal story, and I'll see you in the next one.